Hello, everyone. This is the Jimmy Hitchcock podcast, a talk about the truth. It's called Post, P.O.A.S.T, the real truth. Plan of action, stop talking. Right now, what I want to do is go back to kind of my life story and where I ended the last show. And where I ended the last show was me going off to college. And I got, an interviewer. He's the producer, editor.
You were talking about your college experience a little bit briefly in the first episode. How was it getting recruited in your early college experience? Like, what was that like?
My recruiting experiences were great. I used to go on a lot of visits with my Coach Easy Smith. I used to go to South Carolina a lot with him. He played for the Gamecocks. So when he would take me down he wanted me to play for the Gamecocks, and I almost went there. But leading up to it, I was, getting the letters in the mail, and people will tell you about that experience. Once you start getting those letters in the mail, you start feeling like, okay, this might work, this might happen. So you start getting letters. I started getting letters all over the country. I got letters all from Florida State to Florida Gators, all the way up the coast. So it was a great experience, and I used to go visit. And I actually was a quarterback. So I got recruited by a couple of schools, East Carolina and Wake Forest, to play quarterback. And I felt in the end that Coach Mack Brown was telling me the truth, and that he was the one that was just he was laying it flat out that they were going to probably move me to another position. One, because he felt like I was kind of short to be a quarterback. Unbeknownst to me, Chucky Burnett, I end up going, he's about the same size I am. But anyway, that don't matter. But he felt like that they were going to move me because I was just he felt like a straight athlete, which was the case. And he said, I think you're going to play defensive back. He let me play quarterback in practice for a year while I was redshirted, and to let me see if I could get it done. I felt like I could start, but Jason Stanisic ended up taking it anyway. But the recruiting process was incredible, and I ended up talking to Natron Means, and me and Natron at this time, we were already friends. We had been friends and for a long time, since we were like fourth, fifth grade. We were playing football against each other in the yard, and so I knew his family. I knew his brother Adrian. He knew they stayed right down the street from my cousins, Charles and Kevin. So, but Natron is the one that kind of pushed me toward Carolina. And he pushed me a little bit by saying, hey, my mom, she's going to be up and down. She's going to be able to take care of us, bring us some food. Think about it, what I'm saying? And I had already, been over his house. His mom was very gracious. She would always give me extra food and things like that. So he was the one that kind of pushed me over the edge to go to Carolina and start my college career there.
While you were in college, you led a movement for BCC. So tell me what BCC is and what was it about that changed you?
Right. Well, so I end up getting to college, and I go and I basically have like 3 pair of pants, 3 shirts. You know what I'm saying? That's what I end up going with. I had a couple pair of Jordans that I would buy every year. I would buy the Jordans when I work over in the summer. I buy 2 pair of Jordans. Right. I'd always have my Jordans ready. But I had like 3 pair of pants, 2 shirts, because I would just spend all the money on my shoes. Because, the boys in the hood, we want the clean shoes. So I would spend all my money on shoes, basically, and not really pay attention to the things that's necessary, like underwear and, undershirts and things like that. So I get to college, and it's really a culture shock. Like the kids are driving Benzes and BMWs, and I'm like, it's not so much a shock because my friend Jeff Lippert I told you about, but it's like a lot of them now. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of kids, the white kids. They got these things and they're getting packages from their parents. These, whereas I'm on scholarship with zero money. You know, we can get we get a Pell Grant. It's like $1,500. I used to send that back home to my brother. And so the experience early on was kind of a culture shock. I go on into my sophomore year, and before that, in my freshman year, I started to see a change in a buddy of mine. His name's John Bradley, and I started to see a change in him, and I'd see him reading all the time. And I said, "What you reading, man?" He was like, "I'm reading autobiography of Malcolm X." And I was like, "Really? Oh, what's that about?" And he was like, "You should check it out." And I was like, I'm good, So another buddy of mine named Tim Smith, I see him reading these pamphlets and these different books on African civilization. And he's reading Shikanta Diop, and I'm like, "What y'all reading?" So I kind of get kind of a glimpse of what they read because Tim hands me one of the pamphlets, and it's like a manifesto about the Black community and where we should go. And I'm like, "Oh, that's dope. You got some more?" So John's like, "I'm almost finished autobiography of Malcolm X. You want to read it?" So I was like, "Yeah, let me read it." So I read that. Life changer. It changed my life. I ended up going to African American Studies class, or signing up for African American Studies, and I had a teacher named Sonja Haynes Stone. And I had Bible in high school, and Mrs. Lane Stallings, she taught Bible, and I forget, it's bad. I got bad memory. It's the helmet. I was I had Bible study or Bible class from 7th grade all the way to 12th grade. So for 5 years or 6 years, I had Bible class. I was 6th grade all the way to 12th grade. So I had Bible class, and it kind of shaped my views because we were studying the Bible, and I was really kind of rooted and grounded in biblical principles. And I was just always wanted my family just to be Christians, and get everything together and everybody lived happily ever after type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So, but when I got to college, I met a lady named Sonja Haynes Stone. And the first day of class, she said something about the Bible, that the Bible you should not take literally. She was like, a lot of it's mythological. And I was like, I don't know if I agree with that, So that was the thing that kind of, between her and the Malcolm X book, it kind of just woke me up. And I started reading I would read the entire year, probably 14, 15 books, that first year. Staying in the library, studying, getting on the film. We had Fish then. We had to get on the film and go through the film for articles and things like that. So when I was coming back for my junior year, actually, no, I think this was it was my junior year. And that was my redshirt sophomore year. She passed. Sonja Haynes Stone passed with a brain aneurysm. And there was a movement for a Black Cultural Center already going on, and I didn't know anything about it, but John did. John and Tim knew about it, and they participated in some meetings, but not participated in the rallies and things like that. So once I found out that she passed and they were going to name the building after the Black Culture Center, after Sonja Haynes Stone, I started going to the meetings, right? So when I started to go to the meetings, I met this girl named Michelle Thomas, and Michelle Thomas was just bona fide, like real deal Holyfield. She was with it. She was organized, militant. She used to wear this Public Enemy hat all the time. She used to wear this Public Enemy hat all the time. Walk around campus. She would lead these rallies, right? So Tim Smith, John Bradley, myself devised a plan over the summer of our sophomore year to come out and be a part of this movement. But we wanted to focus on the athlete side. So we took all our shirts off, shaved our heads, bald, and we wanted to look as militant as possible. And Malcolm Marshall, who's like a beast, chest is ridiculous, big dude. They put him on the front page of the newspaper at the time, right? So we started getting this so much. We were on Nightline or 60 Minutes, all right? That's how big it got. We were on like a bunch of news channels. We ended up going to speak at Poughkeepsie. I forgot the name of the college, Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York. We spoke at Vanderbilt. We spoke at these gatherings in Columbia, at Columbia University, teaching people how to protest, march, how to gain attention, things like that, in various places throughout the country. We ended up getting instituted at NC State, their Black Cultural Center. We went to various places, A&T, to help them get Black Studies. But I didn't know Black colleges didn't have Black Studies, but they didn't have Black Studies. So, and they was calling us sellouts. They came when we went to A&T. They was calling us sellouts because we went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So, make a long story short, in this aspect is we catch fire, and we're on the news, and we got a bunch of people coming to the rallies. I mean, hundreds of people coming to the rallies. We end up going to the chancellor's office and just sitting in and shutting it down. We end up going to jail. Me and Tim ended up going to jail. John was the one that was going to stay behind just in case we did get arrested. He could bail us out, right? So John ended up bailing us out, and make a long story short, a lot of things happened. Michael Jordan's mom ended up coming, trying to talk us down to stop protesting, things like that. But we ended up getting approved for the Sonja Haynes Stone Black Cultural Center, which I have a room named after me in that cultural center, the Jimmy Hitchcock multi-purpose room. All right. So that's kind of what it is, and that's kind of the movement. When you look at the history of it, people, they tell a different history, but that's the history pretty much. And we've always wanted to do a documentary on it, things like that, but we haven't been able to actually put those things together. But, I'm going to tell that story in depth in my book.
Let's talk about Mack Brown. You were talking about him a little bit. During the recruiting, let me ask you something. Like, what was the recruiting process like? Did he actually visit you at your home?
He
Come
did.
Sit down with your mom in your living room?
He did. I remember Mack came to my house, and I was stunned that he came to the house.
Was it unannounced?
It was not unannounced, but I was so ashamed of where I lived at the time, because we had like roaches, you know what I'm saying? And I was just so ashamed that of the place that I lived, that I was just stunned when he showed up I was kind of I had a lot of confidence, you know what I'm saying? But I was just kind of ashamed to have him there, kind of thing, you know. But he showed up and he sat down and he started talking just and didn't even look around. And he just made me feel so comfortable, right? And at the time, during that whole recruiting process, I remember Coach Fleming, which is one of my people that was incredible in my life from the time I was in middle school all the way through high school. Um, he he was like, man, stop worrying about you. You worrying about this and that and this and that. They not worried about you. You go and be Jimmy Hitchcock. Yeah, that's enough. You know, that's how he talked to me. You know, so yeah, Mac came to the house, and actually, when he came to the house, and he had he had 3 or 4 coaches with him, and it was me and my brother, you know, and it was me, my brother, and my sisters, and they just sat down and talked to me, and you know, I was making the decision with nobody there. You know what I'm saying? So I was just by myself making the decision. I wasn't, you know, my mom came during my senior in the back half of the senior year, so she was in and out, but I was kind of making the decision on my own where I'm gonna go, you know, and what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Mack Brown, did he know about all the stuff you were doing with BCC?
Oh yeah,
And how
yeah,
did he
yeah.
feel about it?
Well, that's a good question. Mac was in the beginning. He was like he wasn't with it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like back then, it was 1992, 1991, 92. It was a different kind of vibe. You know, today now people with movements and people speaking out and things like that. But back then, it was a little bit different. You know, and Mac, he, Coach Brown was very. I think he was great for at the time. You see what I'm saying? He let us do it. He tried to talk us out of it. You know, he was like, "Focus on football. Your grade's not even good enough." But and I agree with that. So I got my grades up based on what he said. He said you need to get your grades up instead of being protest, and he was right. I should have got my grades up, but I kind of was really focusing on other things. You know, I was thinking pros or busts. You know what I'm saying? But I was going to get that whole culture center thing done though. But he was good as he could possibly be. But one thing I do want to say is that he brought me in his office and said, "Let me read some of these letters to you that I'm getting from alumni." You know, and death threats. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah, it was like weird. Like I was like, what? Like there's death threats over the black cultures. Like I was stunned at the amount of hate that we got. You know, I don't know if he called the other guys in and let them hear the letters. I'm sure he did at some point, but I just remember my experience talking to him about it.
Everything that happened with BCC and how did it affect you? How, changes and maybe your pro aspirations. Where did those start? Well, I mean, I'm sure you went to college with the idea
Right.
of going pro. Like,
Right.
but when was there any shift, or what effects or changes did the BCC have on that?
It kind of it to be honest, to be completely 100. At that time, I had a daughter. You know, it was right at when they approved the Black Cultural Center. Months later, I had a daughter named Jasmine. She's my oldest daughter. She's 30 years old now. And I used to carry her around campus and things like that. So when I saw her and she came out of her mom, something changed me right there. It's I was starting to think I got to provide for this girl because I never had a father, and I was thinking to myself, I got to provide for this girl. So I left all the. I was in a few other movements and meetings, and we got it approved. So I felt like my job was done. You see what I'm saying? So now it's time for me to focus on what I came to school to do. I didn't come to study. Really, I didn't. I didn't come to study. I came to go to the pros. And I used to tell people that all the time. I used to tell everybody I could tell I'm going to the pros. You know, I had this friend on campus, and he played soccer, you know. And I used to say, hey, bro, I'm going to the pro. I used to tell him all the time just because he would be the only one listening. You know. So that my pro aspirations really got refocused from the 6th grade when I said I was going to do it to now I'm a junior. My daughter was born, and the next day we was going to play Florida State. And I went out there and I crushed it. You know, I had one of the best games of the year for me. You know, we lost, but I had a phenomenal game, you know. And I didn't look back from there.
How about long term? Did the BCC and then Black Culture Center affect your life plans or views long term? Like now, when you look back on it, how has that stuff affected you?
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you what affected me is what I learned. And there was an education that was given to us through that movement. Like when the George Floyd movement came about, it reminded me of what we did in the 90s. But it was unfinished business, I felt like, because our generation of the 90s who were about it and, you know, about it, and just unks, African beads, baggy pants, the hat, you know, that was creating a culture of rebellion, didn't finish the job. You see what I'm saying? So I felt like when the George Floyd thing came back around, that it was just unfinished business that the 90s kids that came through college and that was really, really protesting and militant, but now became doctors and lawyers and, you know, running businesses and running companies, and just lost focus on actually getting the goals that we wanted for the community, getting those accomplished. We let them fall by the wayside. Why? We developed bills, you know, families. And we left it for others to do, which is what the whole George Floyd situation, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of some of the things that, you know, the Black Lives Matter did, but I do believe that that was the biggest human rights focus in history, you know. But I'm not a Black Lives Matter fan, but that whole George Floyd situation was created, I think, by Black Lives Matter, which was a movement for human rights, and I think that was good.
Let's end this episode on a lighter note, and
Okay.
let me ask you this: walk me through a day in the life, college. You one of the big men on campus.
Right.
I'm guessing you're probably not doing a lot of studying.
Well, I started studying my junior year, so I was actually studying and trying to get the degree once I became a junior. But a day in a life, we get up, work out, you know, then we go to class, and then we go to practice, and then we go to study hall. That was our day, you know. And our day would probably end at 9:30, 9:15, getting out of study hall. Then we go to the room. Some boys would be up nights drinking, you know what I'm saying? But I was one of those guys that I'm going to get my sleep, you know. I'm going to get my sleep, you know. So especially during the season, I would be very disciplined in what I was doing, I looking back on it, I don't think I ever lost focus on the goal long term, but I did kind of get wayward a little bit, just a little bit off kilter, but got back on path.
All right, man. On the next episode, we're gonna go more into what it was like, life in the pros, and then the downside of what happened and you ended up in jail. Is that all right?
That's fine. That's
All right,
fine. Let's
cool.
do it.
All right.